In this video, we're going to look at two examples from Chapter 17. So in the first one, we're going to look at the sales activity variance, and we're going to break that down further into the market share variance and the industry volume variance. So first, we want to calculate what is that sales activity variance. So we budgeted for 136 units in flavor C, assuming that our company would have 16% of 850,000 units sold in a particular market. Our actual results were 126,000 units based on a 14% share of a total market of 900,000 units. Our budgeted contribution margin is $6 per unit. So we're going to have our flexible budget and our standard contribution margin. Remember that SCM, I'm going to abbreviate it, times our budgeted market share at our actual industry volume, and then our master budget amount. So with our flexible budget, we have our standard contribution margin times the actual quantity. And for our standard contribution margin times the budgeted market share times actual industry volume, we have our standard contribution margin times the actual standard quantity. And for our master budget, it's the standard contribution margin times the standard quantity. So for our standard contribution margin, it's already told us it's $6 per unit. Our actual results were 126,000, which equals $756,000. Okay, so our standard contribution margin then, $6 times our 16% market share times 900,000. So remember, that's the number of units in the market. So the total market is 900,000. Of the total market of 900,000, we budgeted our share being 136,000 units. So we're going to take our $6 times what our normal market share is of 16%, and that the market was 900,000 units. So that equals $864,000. Then we have our master budget amount, which is $6 times 16% times 850,000. So this is our normal market share, which equals, move it over there, 816,000. So if we want to look at what our market share variance is, it's the difference between the 864,000 and the 756,000. So we have a $108,000 unfavorable market share variance. And our industry volume variance is the difference between the 816,000 and the 864,000. That gives us a $48,000 favorable industry volume variance. Our total sales activity variance is those two added together. So we have a sales activity variance of $60,000 unfavorable. Now we'll move to example 2, where we're looking at two models of e-readers. We're going to be doing a sales mix variance and a sales quantity variance. So in this example, our actual prices are not relevant. So we're just looking at the mix and quantity variances. They're based on our standard or budgeted contribution margin per unit. So we're going to have our flexible budget and then our actual sales quantity times the difference between our standard price and the sales volume. Then we're going to look at the master budget amount. So with our flexible budget, we have the actual quantity times standard price with our master budget. So for our flexible budget, we have 7,500 wireless models times, we're looking at our contribution margin differences here now. So we have the $192 budgeted price minus our $80 cost per unit. And then we're going to add our 4,000 wireless and cellular model e-readers at our 416 minus the 160. So that gives us a flexible budget of $1,864,000. Now, if we look at our actual sales mix that we were looking at, so we had sales of 10,000 versus 2,500. So we were going to look at a total of 12,500 with our sales mix. We actually sold 11,500. So we're going to look at our actual sales mix quantity. So that 11,500 times what our sales mix contribution would have been, which is 10,000 divided by 12,500. So for our wireless models, we expected to sell 10,000 of our total 12,500 in product sales. And we're going to take that percentage times our contribution margin for that product. We're going to add that to we're going to do the same exact thing for the cellular and wireless models that we expected to sell 2,500 of our total 12,500 times 416 minus $160 cost. That tells us that at our budgeted sales mix percentages and our budgeted contribution margin versus our actual sales quantity, that amount is $1,619,200. Now let's look at our master budget amounts. So our master budget was 10,000 units of wireless models times a contribution margin and 2,500 cellular models times their contribution margin, giving us a master budget amount of $1,760,000. So if we take 1,864,000 minus $1,619,200, we get a difference of $244,800. That is a favorable variance. That is our mix variance. And the 1,760,000 minus 1,619,200 gives us $140,800 unfavorable variance. That is our quantity variance. If we add those two variances together, that gives us $104,000 favorable activity variance. And those are the examples from chapter 17.